Hey everybody, it's Rogway here, and today we are looking at some more Animate techniques. In this particular video, we're going to be looking at cameras, and we're going to review tweening, which we looked at briefly in the last video. And so we're going to start with this file called Swamp, and we're going to double click it, and you will see that we've got this swampy looking scene. Not really a swamp, more like a lake, but anyways, doesn't matter. I'm not going to get too technical here. One common technique that animators will use is they will build everything in one scene, and they will use a camera to control what actually gets shown on the stage. And so in this case, I have a background that it's on a layer called background. You see that there's just one single layer, one single frame, and it's currently a graphic symbol. So if I unlock this and I click it, and I'll just go up to properties here, you're going to see that it is a graphic symbol. Okay? And if you remember from the last tutorial, symbols are very important because if we want something to move without us having to do any work other than setting it up, your objects need to be symbols so that they can tween to wherever you want them to end up. So again, a common technique used by animators is they will build these long backgrounds. Okay, and I'm just going to show you this one. If I scroll it, you're going to see it's quite a long background. And we're going to use this to create the sort of effect that it's moving, or our character will be moving through the scene. All right. So remember this from an old tutorial, that this little option right here next to your percentage, clip the outside of the stage, basically shows you what is beyond the stage edges and what you can actually see. So that's very important, especially with long images. You want to make sure that you've got the right part showing. So I'm going to just turn that on. Now I unlocked the background, and I've got a keyframe at the start, obviously, because it has to have a keyframe to get started. And what I'm going to do is at about the 4-second mark, you'll see here 4 seconds, I'm going to click that frame, and I'm going to right click and insert a keyframe. So I have extended the background picture from frame 1 all the way to frame 32, or 4 seconds, because we're at 8 frames per second. So 8 times 4, 32. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, if you remember from last tutorial about tweening, remember that your starting keyframe is where it's going to start. And if we go to this keyframe at 4 seconds, this is where it's going to end. So what we're going to do is we are going to slide the background over at the 4-second mark so that it moves to about here to the center of this lake. And if you want it to move in a straight line, you just hold shift, and then it'll lock it to just straight lines and 45-degree angles only. So I'm going to just kind of slide this like that. So now if I did that correctly, the first keyframe will be here, and the 4-second keyframe will be here. And then again, this is a bit of a review from last time. We are going to right click the gray space, and we're going to make a classic tween. And Animate will fill in this movement of the background sliding across our scene. All right, so that's the first step to what we want to do. And then we're going to lock this because we don't want to accidentally move the background now. Now we're going to make a new layer. We're going to click here. And I'm going to call this layer character. Or I could just call it car, like car, C-H-A-R, for character, because I'm lazy. And I'm going to go to the first frame of our character layer. Now, remember in the last tutorial we talked about symbols and libraries and all that good stuff. So inside the library, up at the top right, you're going to see a symbol called Axe Dude. And this Axe Dude, we're going to drag him in here. We're going to drop him somewhere about here. Let's just make sure we can see all of our scene. Looks right. And as we scroll through this, you're going to see that the axe dude already has his walk cycle built in. As you can tell, he walks and he swings his arm. And if we ever want to check that or see how that was done, if we double click our symbol, we can go in and we can see the individual frames. Okay, so there's the timeline for that. But we're not going to change anything. We're just going to go back out to our scene by clicking the scene, and we're going to get back to here. Now, one thing we want to create here is something that is going to give sort of a parallax effect, it's called. We're going to tween our axe dude as well. So we're going to go to the 4-second mark here, and on the character layer, we're going to right click, and we're going to insert a keyframe. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take our axe dude at 4 seconds, and we're going to move him, I'm holding shift, to about here, to about the middle. And I'm going to tween that by right clicking in the gray area to make a classic tween. Okay, so he's moving slightly quicker than the background. That's going to give sort of a parallax sort of an effect where they're not moving at the same speed. It doesn't look quite so robotic. Okay, so if I was making an amazing animation, let's say I was working for Disney and I'm making some animation, this animation, let's just test it, let's play it. It's going to look pretty boring. It's going to look pretty robotic. He's simply just moving across a scrolling background, and there's not too much interesting sort of things going on in this scene. We can take a scene and make it way more interesting using cameras, okay? And the best way for me to describe this is if you were shooting a movie in real life, let's say you're using your phone, you're going to use a camera to sort of point at what you want people to see. The way we're looking at this scene right now is we see everything. We see all the background, we see the character, all of, basically whatever we put on the stage. Imagine we're in this scene and we want to actually focus on certain parts of it using a camera. That's what we're going to look at next here. And this is a little tricky, so try to follow along. Again, up to this point, we have a character layer, we got a background layer. We're going to lock the character layer. We don't want it to accidentally move. And then what we're going to do is we're going to click this Add Camera button up here. That is going to add a camera to the stage. Doesn't look like anything changed except this slider here. This slider is what gives us control of the camera. So right now you'll see it's in zoom mode. So if we slide, we will be able to zoom in on our stage, okay? And it'll reset back to the middle, and then you can either go more or less depending on what you want to do. To move the camera, we put our cursor up on the stage, and we can move it as if we're looking sort of with the camera. So we're going to kind of focus on this character to start. Now another cool thing you can do with cameras is you've got this rotation control, which is here. And we can rotate the camera a little bit. Maybe this will add more of a dramatic effect. I'm going to rotate it a little bit. Okay? So our first frame is currently set to this zoom and to this rotation, and we can move it wherever we want. You'll notice that it made a keyframe there. As we move our playhead, you'll notice that our character walks off and basically leaves what we're looking at. And the reason for that is, imagine you were standing here with your phone recording this guy walking, but you never moved the camera. You just stayed looking at the same spot. And of course, the character moves off because he walked to a different part of the stage. So what we need to do is we need to move to a part where we want the camera to follow. So we're going to go right to the last frame. We're going to click that last frame. We're going to right click it, and we're going to put a keyframe just like we do for everything else. And now we're going to move our camera to find the axe guy again. There he is. And now what we'll do is maybe we'll have the camera zoom out a bit. And rather than rotate, maybe it goes back to being straight again. Now again, you can experiment with whatever you want here. Okay, but we're gonna just kind of get him showing again, so that we can see his whole body, maybe something like that. Okay, so now you'll see that at the starting point, it's zoomed in on him, and at the ending point, it's zoomed out and it's rotated a little bit differently. Okay, now you might be able to predict the next step. It's exactly the same as what we've been doing. With cameras, you can tween the keyframes. So if I want to tween this movement, I'm going to right click. I'm going to create a classic tween. And now my camera will dynamically follow him in a much more interesting way. Oh, look, I got a bit of the background showing. That's okay, who cares? And now if I test that, if I actually play that and look at it, it's going to be way more interesting than just having him slide across the stage in sort of a stationary side view. This has way more sort of, I want to say professionalism, but I know it's more of a dramatic effect more than anything. But it definitely looks way more polished than the previous example where we just saw the character sort of slide across. Not as impressive. Now, the cool thing about cameras is that you can put as many keyframes as you want, just like with anything else. You can put as many keyframes as you want anywhere you want. So let's say for the first part of your scene, you have him walking to the middle of the pond. And then maybe this next frame, you have a character who's like talking to him or something. Well, if you want it to sort of jump to that character, it's called a cut. If you wanted to just instantly cut to the character, you could put a keyframe here right after this one, and then the camera would basically just jump to that new position. So there's so much you can do with cameras. It takes a little bit of experimenting, but once you get the hang of it, it's no different than tweening, and it's really, really easy. It's going to give your animations a much more professional look. All right, that's where we're going to end for today. In the next tutorial, we'll be talking about how to add sound effects. That's always fun. And we're also going to start exploring rigging, which is a whole nother can of worms. So stay tuned for that. Again, make sure you get the hang of tweening and cameras, because they are going to be super useful in your upcoming animations. Till next time, thanks for watching.